the most painful is letting go of people sooner. I yes, never had to sort of painfully let someone go where I was like, man, I'm so glad I waited as long as I did. Every single time you knew at an earlier stage and just either made excuses, either for for you or the company or for why it's going to work, why it's going to be different. You would think that's one of those lessons. It's like, oh, you learn it and then you know it. But I mean, I made that mistake 15 years ago, and I've made it much more recently than that. It's a really, really hard one, but definitely is.
They say it's lonely at the top. They're right. But you don't have to scale your company alone. Welcome to the Scaling CEO. I'm Glenn Gow, the CEO Success Coach. On this podcast, I sit down with top performing CEOs to uncover the hidden patterns and frameworks behind their success so you can avoid common pitfalls and accelerate your company's growth. Now, on to the show. Today, we have a CEO who defines serial entrepreneur, starting his first company at 11 years old and building a career entirely focused on the massive, complex world of video games. Our guest today is Adam Lieb, CEO of GameSight, a technology company that builds essential publishing tools for games by solving the attribution and performance marketing problem for PC and console titles. Before GameSight, Adam founded Duckster, a social network for gamers, and Gaming Synergies, a network of 20-plus gaming service websites. Adam is an absolute pro at moving fast and scaling, having been recognized as a top entrepreneur under 30 and has built products and services that have reached billions of gamers. This is a founder who earned his JD and MBA while still running his multi-million-dollar business and is now tackling the monumental task of raising twin 11-year-olds with his wife, calling the whole experience like running 3 startups at once. Adam is all about finding that ground truth, but admits being understood is often the thing that matters most. This is a CEO who has scaled companies, communities, and his own education, the ultimate scaling CEO. Adam, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So talk to us about scaling insights you might have and about moving faster, some things that you would have done differently to move faster with GameSight. Was it letting go of a product feature or a data model or even a key member of a team maybe earlier than you did?
Oh man, that's like every single thing you said there. I probably have a long story for each of those.
All right.
So yeah, I won't do all of that, but I would say a couple of the things that sparked. The first is the most painful is letting go of people sooner than I yes, never had to sort of painfully let someone go where I was like, man, I'm so glad I waited as long as I did. Every single time you knew at an earlier stage and just either made excuses, either for for you or the company or for why it's going to work, why it's going to be different, and you would think that's one of those lessons. It's like, oh, you learn it and then you know it. But I mean, I made that mistake 15 years ago, and I've made it much more recently than that. It's a really, really hard one, but it definitely is. I'm better at it than I used to be, but I still don't think I've ever, and I've certainly never gone the other way where it's like, man, we've had to part ways, and later like, gosh, that was really dumb. Why did I do that? Oh, for life on ever having that experience. And I think one of the things that I've, I guess, come to accept about scaling startups, as you say, is that some people are the right fit for the company at the right time, but the wrong fit at another time. And it's not necessarily a failure of them, and it's not necessarily a failure of the company. And, it's the like, oh, we just, we grew apart. And I do think that is almost necessary, with growing a company, that some people are exactly who you need when you're 15 people and they're not who you need when you're 50 people. And of course, there's some people who morph and change and go, hey, I'm going to be sort of a different person as a
Right.
team member, maybe a different person on this 50-person team than I was on the 15-person team. But a lot of people aren't that way. A lot of people, they're really good and enjoy the things that make you successful at 15 people and are not good and enjoy the things that you do at 50 people. And I guess I've come to accept more that is, I guess, more cost of doing business than a failure. Because I think for a long time you really obsessed on like, okay, well, did we really hire the wrong person, or did we not create the right environment for them? And the answer is sometimes like, yep, they were the right person, and yep, it was the right environment, but over time it just sort of ended up not working. So yeah, I get that's probably a good one.
I'm so glad you brought that up. And one of the things I notice is this happens to CEOs as well. So
especially when CEOs are raising money, by definition, when an outside investor put money into the company, you were the right person at the right time at that size. But what happens is that the company grows and things change, and the CEO has to evolve. They have to scale themselves and add to their skill set in order to run a company that is growing. And this is why CEOs get replaced when they are that kind of person that was right for the company when it was scrappy, but can't take it to the next level. So, on that point, I'd like you to share some thoughts on how do you personally scale yourself as a CEO to continue being successful as the company grows?
Yeah, it's definitely one of the hardest parts, maybe not the hardest part of the job is I think oftentimes when you get good at something, that's the thing you have to stop doing. And I think almost every other job is almost the opposite. It's like once you figure something out and get good at it, then great. Then you get to keep doing it, do that thing over and over. In a lot of ways, it's a sign to me that I probably should be doing something if I've gotten too comfortable with it or too good at it. It's probably about time for that to be probably someone else's job and not mine anymore. And that's frustrating, right? Like every
Oh,
human
yeah, that's
being
hard.
like we like being good at things. We like doing things that we're good at. And like, I don't think anyone says they like doing things they're bad at. I think that there's, learning and there's sort of things that come out of doing things you're bad at that are positive, but the actual doing a thing you're bad at sucks. And I think
And,
that that's the sort of the nature of the job as a growing, as a CEO of a growing
that's
company
right. And
is
it's
to get
particularly
that
hard
churn out.
as the CEO. Sorry to interrupt you.
No, no,
Um,
please.
it's particularly hard as a CEO because what I say to CEOs is, look, you don't need to be great at everything, but you do need to be competent enough to hire and manage people in that function. And so you're going to have to lean in to building a skill set enough so that you know what's going on in those areas where you don't feel like you're already a superstar. So let's talk a little bit about your background. So you earned a JD and an MBA while running your business. So what's the non-obvious skill you gained from that legal and business school grind that has given you an unfair advantage in scaling Game Site?
Yeah, the best skill is email writing. I write really good, concise, to the point emails that focuses on what you would call in law school legally significant facts, but the most important things, and not getting distracted with the not important things. When you really think about, it starts like you take the LSATs, and then law school is very much like this. The bar is very much like this, and I think various legal jobs are like this, where a huge part of the kind of legal training, legal brain is the ability to consume a lot of information about something often random, arcane, uh, confusing, and turn that into what's the important thing that matters for what we're doing, the case, the trial, whatever the thing is. And that is a skill that you're, again, from like the LSAT on to all through law school, you kind of learn and train. And I think that I get emails oftentimes from people that are 2,000 words. And it's like, okay, my job is to take those 2,000 words and turn it into, okay, here's the 3 action items, or here's the takeaway from this thing and what it's, going to mean for the, me or the business or the team or whatever the things are. And very often that means writing a concise email back, either to the stakeholder or to another team or whatever it is. And and Slack messages and other things too. But I would say, generally speaking, I write a lot of emails, tens of thousands of emails. I looked at the stat at some point. I think I've written a while ago, like 95,000 emails over the last like 5 years or something like that. And
Wow.
it was you start looking at like, okay, if you're going to do something at that scale, talk about scaling. Well, one of the things that doesn't go away is writing emails, no matter, I don't think, at least I've not gotten to that CEO scale yet. I think we
Yeah,
write emails forever. So that being this sort of like fundamental, I don't know if it's a skill necessarily, but it's certainly a fundamental task that you do as a CEO, and being, I think, relatively good at that, and relatively good at least making the emails impactful and not ones that kick the can or create boomerang problems for you, but instead actually progress things. It is something that I am good at, and I think legal training sets you to do that. And some of it is even, hopefully people copy me at work. Some of it is like formatting, and like when you use bolds and headers and things to make sure people are focusing on the right stuff, so they're not caught in this, oh, I've got a wall of text email, what the hell am I supposed to do with this? Instead they go, oh cool, I see, he's bolted for me the thing I'm supposed to do. And not that any of that is like, rocket surgery or whatever. You don't have to go to law school to be able to do that. But I do think that I got good at that
that's
during
great.
that legal education.
That's great, and you do it through email, and what I call it is helping people focus, right? There are so many things that can distract us, and there's so many things that look like they're important. One of the key things a CEO can do is really ask the question of the person you're interacting with: Is this important? This particular issue that we're going to spend time on, is it important relative to everything else we can be spending time on? And sometimes the answer is yes, but you'd be surprised. More often than not, the answer is no. So why are we spending time on it? And we can let it go. And that's a
Yeah.
that's a gift you give to everybody if you can help them just focus on the things that are most important.
Yeah, I find that most people, when you kind of interrogate them on that, kindly, but like help, most people will correctly prioritize things. But I think when you get caught in the gust of email, Slack, customer calls, or like whatever, all these things, we are human beings. We are not ruthless, prioritization engines that are constantly reevaluating everything we do. And so sometimes, yeah, that stop and reflect. Okay, are these really the three things that we ought to be focusing on? Is this thing you're, going to spiral your whole day on? Does that crack your top three list, or is it really six or seven? I think when you just ask people a few questions about it, usually they end up getting the right answer. It's very rare where I have a direct report where they're like, "Oh yeah, I'm really focused on this thing." I'm like, "Oh, this is like not one of the things you should focus on." Almost never happens, but that's not, people don't necessarily spend their time commensurate with how they even think the priorities line up, and that's a different skill to develop. But yeah, I'm totally with you there.
So let's talk about your time as a first company founder at the age of 11 and making money from gaming, and I suspect that drove you to what you're doing today. Talk to us about how you maintain a long-term vision during the daily grind to continue to scale what you're creating. What have you held on to from your early days that's actually helped you scale now?
Yeah, it's funny when you look back at it. I mean, I for sure didn't at 11 years old identify myself as an entrepreneur, that I founded this company and I had some vision. It was very much like this was something I was interested in. I found an opportunity, that made money, that basically paid for my hobby and interest. And I said, well, this is cool. Like, I'd rather do something that, costs me no money or makes me money, as a hobby or whatever, because it was something I was already interested in. So I think that, I can retell history now, and it, can weave into my entire life experience, which is of course true. But I don't think I thought about it then the way certainly I would talk about it now. But I think the thing that was probably it was true then as it is now, is a little bit what I just said, is like, if you, the cheesy expression, if you do what you love, you never work a day in your life or whatever, which is, certainly not, I don't think actually true, but I do think that it is much easier to go to work every day when you're working on something that you're interested in. And those reasons are myriad. They could be because you're, because it's a hobby or passion, which is, I think, for maybe 90% of the people that work at GameSite, probably the case, that part of what gives them purpose and enjoyment of going to work every day is they get to work in a medium that they have a personal passion for. They play games, they love games, and being a part of helping games be successful is rewarding. If it's something that you are personally into, you can of course, just as sort of a B2B company, like, hey, I just like businesses being more successful, and I like helping them do that. I'm sure that some people get that enjoyment, but I think for most, that extra excitement to come to work every day comes from working on a medium that you care about. I would say this to engineers in the early days. If you're a database engineer or whatever, it's like, would you rather be a database engineer trying to do like HIPAA compliant software for some giant healthcare company,
But that sounds so
or
exciting, Adam.
no, but it's like, what's funny is like the work is probably the same. Like the actual day to day, what you're doing, like a lot of the problems you're solving are the exact same problems. They're database. I made it's a made up example, but like, you're solving issues with like scaling, a database out of business and what's going to work best for this business. The what the business ultimately provides to you know customers is kind of irrelevant to your job as a database analyst.
Right, right.
But like, if all things being equal, more fun, if you get to be a part of big game launches and cool things like that. So I think that's a big part of it for, for me and a lot of people that work here, and that's part of the, um, the vision is like that. It is helping things come to life, helping games launch that you're excited to be a part of, that hopefully you're excited to play. And there's no doubt, I have the feeling of pride to go to like the gaming award shows, right, which is like like the Emmys basically, but like for video games. And you see the big games on the screen, game of the year, and you look at like 4 of the 5 games nominated are games that GameSite works on, and you're like, that
Very
there's a
cool.
pride that comes from that would be different, I think, than, yeah, maybe you build healthcare software, maybe there's different pride in that, you're helping people be healthy or whatever. I'm not to say that other jobs don't have those things, but I
Sure.
think specifically that's the thing that, for me, has certainly been a constant over many businesses in many years, is that it's, in a hobby area, passion of mine.
I love it. I can see the excitement. So on the last topic, we can talk. We don't have to talk shortly, or we don't have to compress our conversation. It's about AI. And so first I'd like to hear from you about how do you think about, not in development yet, because that's where we could easily go, but how do we think about how AI applies operationally inside your company? But then I would also like to hear about how games are made and how communities are engaged and what you're doing in the area of AI. So share some insights with us here.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how insightful to be. I feel like most of my A takes are like, I don't know, kind of the middle of the road ones, which are like, there are definitely some operational ways in which AI is used at work that makes our lives, better. I think there's ways that it is worse or can make things worse. I think the simple example I have is like, I don't want to say it's a policy, but it's a norm that I am setting, which is you shouldn't AI is really good. My co-founder, our CTO Rob, would always for years he's called a lot of the AI chatbots if we use word calculators, and I think it's a really good way to think about how a lot of people sort of use it operationally in a day-to-day workplace context. Great example: you take the 5,000 word email, you ask AI to give you the 3 bullet takeaways for it. It's a word calculator. It's taking those words, it's recombulating them, it's giving you a different output. And sometimes it's like, hey, take those 5,000 words and turn it into to-do action items for my internal team, and then make external action items for the external team or whatever. Fine. It's really good at things like that. And so back to what, the norm that I'm trying to set is like, a human still needs to be reading all of those things before they go out. Don't ask me to read your AI slop if you haven't read it yourself. If
Yeah.
you've read it it can assure me that all the stuff in there is like accurate and, the right type of stuff you want to be sharing. Awesome. And unfortunately, people don't always do that. And, I see it from customers sometimes. You get emails, you're like, oh, this is clear. Someone threw this into ChatGPT. They didn't read the output. And it's like mostly right. I review contracts, especially like big customer contracts, sometimes. And we got one in the last 3 or 4 months where it was clear to me the lawyer from the other side used, I don't know, some AI tool, and because some of the comments were irrational. They did not make sense, and no human being could have read them and thought they made sense. But they used an AI
Yeah.
thing, and so, yeah, in some ways they make our lives better. In other ways, that you get stuff that's like that, where you're like, okay, now I have to. And it's really hard to write, especially for me. It's really hard to write a response to a lawyer that says like, "Hey, bozo, I can tell you ChatGPT and didn't read what you sent me. So like, try again." Like, you can't obviously say that. So figuring out how to write the like, "I'm not really sure what you meant by this," because for sure when they see it, they're going to be embarrassed because I'm like, "Oh crap, I sent this without like,
I get it. No, I get it. I get it. Got to have a
checking."
human in the loop. So talk to us just for a minute here on the gaming side. How are you looking at AI and how it's going to impact what's happening there?
Yeah, I'm more on the skeptical side, I would say, in the, kind of industry wide. I think there's, a couple of headwinds. I think the first is that games are inherently a creative endeavor. And that means that, the expectations of consumers are that they're getting something that was a piece of, human ingenuity. It doesn't mean that you can't use AI in certain areas, but the idea of like, oh, fully AI generated games, even if they're good, I don't think that matches consumer preferences and consumer expectations for games specifically. There are other things where maybe people wouldn't care at all, like a random website. I don't care who built it, a human or like a robot. But for games, there is still an expectation. Maybe that'll change over years, but right now, I think we're pretty far away. And if you look at most of the consumer gamer sort of critical response from game companies when there have been kind of AI discussions, have been super negative and very harsh, that gamers are not ready to basically, have AI build games for them, or have too much AI in their games. I think secondly, against it is a fundamentally artistic endeavor. The industry is full of tens of thousands of literal artists and creatives. Uh, those humans are not in a hurry to have their, sort of jobs replaced by AI. Have their jobs aided by AI, sure. and then I think the third, which is maybe the thing I'm maybe most interested in, is the legal the legal ramifications and the legal like lack of clarity on anything that is going into games that is in the generative AI space where
Who owns the IP?
ChatGPT, make me a tree so I can put in my video game. Cool, it'll make you a tree. But if that tree was trained on 10,000 trees that were in Fortnite, now all of a sudden you've stolen a tree from Fortnite and put it in your game.
Yeah.
And Fortnite and
Yeah.
Epic paid all those developers to design those trees. And not to say that these things are unresolvable or won't ever be different than they are, but I think right now that those are kind of like the big headwinds. So I would say,
That's great. Great. Thank you for sharing
great
that.
for some, probably not great for others.
No, that's fantastic. I want to hear everybody's perspective on the future. So, Adam, we're out of time. So I assume people can reach you on LinkedIn. Any other ways you might want people to reach out to you?
LinkedIn's probably best. I mean, I'm on Twitter, but I would say LinkedIn is probably the thing I'm the most available on, and I review my LinkedIn ads personally or whatever. So,
Okay, Adam, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
thank you.
That's a wrap for today's episode of The Scaling CEO. If you found this valuable, be sure to like, subscribe, and share with a fellow CEO who could benefit. If you're listening on Apple or Spotify, please give us a quick rating as it really helps more people find the show. I'm Glenn Gao, the CEO Success Coach. See you next time for more proven strategies to grow your business and leadership.